So I wanted to know about, yeah, for you to speak about how your writing practice has changed since being in the group and what you're working on.
Mhm.
Mhm. And what we can look
Well,
forward to with you.
well, my writing practice has just started
Mm.
because I've never really been one to write.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe just jot things down. But in terms of writing, uh, this is kind of a new experience for me. I had been been preparing to do something. I think kind of around what we were doing in the class in terms of what I was writing regarding clouds, because from the photographs I had, I wanted to be able to take those and create stories around them, because something exists around everything that we do.
Mm.
So then just trying to try and write a book or a novel or anything of that nature, but trying to create things where the stories can or the writings can kind of have a flow, at some point in time. But that's all part of the process in terms of how to develop everything I write, then put it together. So it's kind of got me writing things, thinking a whole lot more, putting thoughts into things, and trying not to let any type of thought or idea escape.
Now, you say you didn't have a writing practice before. I mean, did you get any feedback from your guests after the author reading? Because I was totally blown away by that story you read at the author reading.
Oh, about the rainbow and
Yes.
thank you. Yeah, so that kind of falls into something that I want to put together in terms of really having, to show, just to have the one or two pictures, but at the same time, in terms of doing an exhibit, with the photographs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with that, it just kind of falls into how to create stories, because even like when I showed two or three pictures with this the short story, but at the same time to create the book that may have more and more, but have different types of stories, because it may be various chapters or books that can cover so many different topics.
Mm-hmm.
It's
As
just
you
almost
know,
like
you and Jamel were the only men in the course, and I would like for more men uh, to get involved.
Mhm.
Um, and what would you say to men out there who are considering a course, a writing course? What would you say is an attractive point for you as a man in this course?
Well, it's interesting because I was sharing it with a friend of mine. And he told me he's just he signed up for a writing course, and somewhere else he's doing that. So to really talk to people who are doing these things, in terms of not saying what our stories are, but kind of like things that we have to be able to project. Because we're at a time and where we are now where everything's been told about us, but not told from us. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
really important to be told, be able to put that out there to do that. It's not that, anyone can write a song. Well, not anyone can write a song, but you can rap about certain things, just, it becomes emotional. But at the same time, you get a chance to really express, your intuition, in term as far as what you want to say, how you want to say it, and who you want to hear it and how you want them to hear it. It goes back to something I think I mentioned in one of the writings, is don't surrender your intuition.
Yes.
And so, we live in a society today where a lot of that's gone. And so, writing, most guys would think of as a girl's thing, or this selected guys who can write but don't write. A friend of
Mm-hmm.
mine, he had written a novel, and it was a surprise to me, just knowing that, okay, he wrote a novel. I picked it up, I read it, and to support him as well. And it's a good, for his first novel, it's a good book. And so it gives you that sense of confidence that I'm not the only one here as far as guys who are doing this, because everybody has a story, that has to be, that not has to be, but should be heard or actually documented,
Mm-hmm.
because so we know our own experiences and our own stories,
Yeah.
particularly at a time like this where you have the movement of the social movements going on, Black Lives Matter, and everybody thinks they can pick up a book and read this book and understand the totality of Black people.
Mm.
And that's one person you might be talking about, but still, have you studied that book, or is this a writing that you think that you might know and, not really sure to know?
Hmm. So if I hear you correctly, it's not even a question of what can make the course attractive to men. It's a question of, are you someone who, if you're someone who's interested in writing intuitively and writing in an environment that supports your authentic voice and allows you to feel uh, culturally safe and culturally comfortable and heard, then this group will appeal to you. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
okay? Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Because as I say, with the mix of people we had there, and you know, someone, Courtney doing a blog, and then some, Jamel doing more of a poetry type of thing. I sense from him, um, and Feta, doing more of like a historical thing in terms of her family,
Mm-hmm.
as well as, Betsa, in terms of her,
Yeah.
the history.
Mm-hmm.
So you get this whole history thing in terms of what's there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it helps too in terms of really creating dialogue. And
Mm.
and it's interesting too when you mention like men, because a lot of times, we don't really like to read. We just like to read captions and
Mm.
interpret. So it's like, give someone a caption. It's like, okay, now write your story about this caption and see what comes about. Yeah, you could even start with your name or even how you tie your shoes.
Mm. Yeah. So, yeah, like how you pointed out, everyone in the group was working on something different. Everyone didn't even come to the group with the intention of writing a book, right? Like you said,
Right.
Courtney had a blog, and you're still trying to decide how you want to your final product or products to look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Jamel was still working through his, and it looked like he was poetry. He had a heavy poetry influence. Um, yeah. So right. So even though it's called Write Your Book, Inspire Others, and Leave Your Mark on the World, it's really about what story do you have to tell, and you can tell it any way you want to. And this is a space that not only allows you but supports your voice in telling your story the way that suits you, so that, like you said, our stories can be out there and can be heard for the world to learn from, because there isn't enough being told. There could never be enough, right? And I think
Right.
about this often also as a child of the Black Panther Party. Um, there there just isn't enough time in the world to tell all the stories of the party. And then that would be the same thing for just any people. And since we're speaking specifically about Black people right now, there isn't enough time to tell all the stories. And there's no story can be told too many times, because sometimes a lot of people might feel like, well, I shouldn't tell my story because a similar story has already been told, it's already been done. And if you think about it, we're inundated with stories that have been told a million times. Like sometimes, even as Black people, we get tired of like, I've seen this story at the, this
Right.
movie line so many times, and it does not include me.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's where you can't really surrender your intuition, because it's only one of you in this whole universe.
Mm.
So if you really think of yourself to become generically cloned mindset, then yeah, you become that book, you become that saying. So
Yeah.
how do you kind of get yourself out of that realm to be able to feel what's going on around you, and because
Mm.
and to really appreciate your own uniqueness, which becomes a challenge for a lot of us, because we always are measured against something else.
Mm-hmm. I like that you pointed out also about feeling, awakening those senses to feel what's going on around us,
Hmm.
because I think a lot of times uh, when I think within the group, I help to bring that out too. So
Yeah,
if you're used to writing, like you said, captions or something really quickly, but you're not used to going deeper, this
yeah,
becomes a place where you're able to easily, go deeper and deeper in a very supportive environment with other people who are also reflecting that process with you.
Yeah, yeah, and not having the fear of going deeper, which becomes the
Mm-hmm.
other part, because then whether it be in beginning or end, you decide whether it's fiction or nonfiction, or how you want to document that in terms of how you want to create a story,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of who you are and how you present it.
Yeah.
So there should, in terms of the fear, it's almost like going back to, the adage of like, I want to play football. I'm going to take, if you're in high school, I'm going to take a football, play football. I don't want to take a typing class. But in today's world, you can't get by without typing,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, or texting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the story comes about this, like, being able to tell that, to tell the stories. And one thing I really kind of had this conversation with, not long ago with someone else, is that you have, even like in the educational system, I think I don't know if we talked about it in the group, where, you have a lot of young Black men or men of color that cannot read or
Mm-hmm.
articulate. And that becomes something of a challenge. So I think even like in a workshop like this, it helps them to be able to let me say something, let me be able to say who I am, do what I need to do,
Yes.
and and be able to formulate a story, a
Yeah.
sentence, or something,
Yeah.
to kind of continue.
Exactly. Without being judged. That's so great that you bring that up, because I have 16 years as a classroom teacher, and I often taught in alternative education, continuation high schools. And so I taught a lot of students who had educational trauma as well as personal trauma. And I bring that to everything that I do. In fact, that's why I wanted to create a course that could encompass all of my talents as an educator, as someone who taught special ed, who taught students who have that educational trauma. They've been kicked out of the mainstream school system, and they come with a chip on their shoulder, or they don't have the support that they need. And then how I taught them to experience their victories
Yeah,
really quickly. And
when you
so
have journal
I,
or even writer's block. So when you have a writing block, it's like, what do you do? And I think I mentioned, for myself, I'll make cards, or, and because I'm doing a, a project that entails, photographs, so I could, I can just go out and take pictures.
mhm,
And, even like within a picture, if I take a picture of, a building or a street, then I can, can I write a story about every window? Something's going on in every window in that building. So what can I write something about? What can I, so that becomes that creative, that whatever however you want to be creative with that, in that mode.
wow, yeah. So, what should people be looking forward to with you? What are you working on with your writing?
Gee, I'm working on several things,
Okay.
uh, because I think with the photographs, it, it kind of falls into environmental issues or environmental experiences we have,
Mm-hmm.
social things, and just, spiritual things that are happening that, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned, like things we know but we don't pay attention to. It's like when you
Right.
see a photograph or picture, it's like it becomes just that one picture.
Mm-hmm.
But when you read something that can kind of jog your mind, whether it be based upon a social issue, but at the same time you can still see the beauty in the environment. But, I mentioned clouds. What are all the things that are happening under that cloud?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what kind of can be written about. So for me, looking forward to, or trying to prepare myself to present like a photo exhibit,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and and still, create a, a book to be able to have the writings, be able to kind of do the writings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like what I'm looking forward to kind of getting into in a upcoming
Oh,
future.
I can't wait to see your photo exhibits with some of your
Back there,
stories next to them. Oh yeah, yeah, we can see in the background.
that's the one I.
But I mean your upcoming exhibits, because they'll have some of your writing next to them, won't they? Your
Yes,
upcoming,
yes.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
can't wait to even see that. But yeah,
Well,
that's
that piece. It was inspired because I mean I had that photograph, and then I was home one night. And I was doing some things, and just kind of playing around with some things on a computer, and this whole mindset or whole kind of concept of portals. And
Mm,
then this picture reflected back on that, and I'm like, okay, portals. And so, so I started writing something, regarding portals, because right now we're kind of going through a portal in the world based upon what's going on, how the world's changing around us. So, how do you want to come out on the other side of that portal? So I want to come
mm.
out doing some, doing some writing. And so this is helping me to really reinvent myself or take me to another dimension of who Ron Calime is.
Wow.